Max Blumenthal and Aaron Maté. Max Blumenthal is the founder of the Grayzone, and Aaron Maté is the award-winning New York-based Canadian journalist who hosts a show for Grayzone called Pushback. They're both here with us today. Welcome.
Good to see you, Jimmy.
Okay, well, the reason why I have you on is because you guys made a big splash. You went to this thing. It's called the Collision Tech Conference, and it's the Olympic of Tech, says Politico. The Olympics of Tech. And then they have these two people I never saw, and you could even partner with them if you want to. But so tell me what happens at a tech festival, a Collision Tech Fest.
That's why I went there. I don't know if Aaron has a better answer than me, but we got there, and first of all, everyone has lanyards. It's a big lanyard fest. Giant amphitheater in Toronto, and basically the tech industry gets together and pats itself on the back and networks. It's a real networking festival for people in tech. I saw Eric Schmidt, one of the founders of Google. From Alphabet, who partners with the Pentagon closely. He's working with the Pentagon on building an AI weapon against China. He's a mentee. He's a mentee of Henry Kissinger, and he was sort of on stage to debunk the notion that AI can become sentient, or that it has a spirit, because one of Alphabet or Google's web designers, actually came out and claimed that AI was developing sentience. And at the same time, Schmidt was promoting a future in which we will all have an artificial intelligence twin that will guide us through our lives, that adapts to our own behavior and helps us become our best selves. But he guaranteed that the twin would not become, in his words, emergent. And emergent is basically what happens when if you watch the opening scene of Terminator 2, where Skynet is actually fighting the humans. That's what happens when the humans design a machine that overtakes it and becomes more intelligent than humans, and then begins to dominate it, and we live under an AI dictatorship. So, and Schmidt was politely applauded, and right before Eric Schmidt, Carmelo Anthony was on stage.
The basketball player?
New York Knicks. Yeah, the longtime ball hog for the New York Knicks, he was on stage with some other designer, and they're designing a virtual Carmelo Anthony and touting it in front of 2,000 people. And basically you get to hang out with Carmelo Anthony in your living room or wherever through your Oculus or Meta lenses. And there may, sometime in the future, be a three-dimensional hologram version of Carmelo Anthony that you can kick it with. And Carmelo Anthony's lone message was that we just need to get out of the way because we don't know where this can go. The sky's the limit, but humans need to get out of the way of tech and just let it happen.
My favorite part was when the interviewer says to Carmelo, "Mello, would you say that you're tech forward?" Mello goes, yes, I am tech forward. And that was it.
What is that?
I don't know. I don't know what that means.
They always use that in cooking shows. Like Guy Fieri will be like, "This is a real garlic forward dish."
So, all right. Well, I want
a lot of phoniness, but it was the phoniness and all that kind of language was papering over the coming dystopia that we are supposed to accept and normalize. And then, Jimmy, I think it's important to note that there was an entire media track for this conference where the mainstream media was just being celebrated for telling the truth and putting forward this brave reality against the insurrectionists and the disinformationists. The day before us, they had the Obama Foundation attacking disinformation on stage. They had the Institute for Strategy. What is it? ISG, Institute for
Strategic
Dialogue, which has attacked Aaron as the #1 promoter of disinformation on Syria. They were on stage. They refused an interview request for us.
We asked them for an interview, but they didn't respond to us.
They had Betsy Reed, then the editor-in-chief of The Intercept. She's since been promoted to edit the Guardian America.
No,
she was on a panel about disinformation, and this is the person who buried Glenn Greenwald's reporting on Hunter Biden's laptop, refused to publish it. I mean, it kind of provided a lot of momentum for us in our panel to slam the corporate media as the leading disseminator of disinformation on the planet.
And let me just show a quick video of you talking about this very thing at this summit. So let's play it. It's about a minute long.
First of all, let me ask the editor-in-chief here next to me, Max. What was the motivation to set Grayzone up about 8 years ago now?
Well, in short, there was nowhere else I could do the reporting that we do, because by the time I set it up as a fully independent entity in 2018, the mainstream press in the US had been fully consolidated as essentially an arm of the intelligence services, the national security state. And what we aim to do, which is what journalists like Cy Hirsch, our friend, traditionally did, is to expose the deceptions that are taking us into these disastrous wars, which are now wrecking our economy and possibly imperiling all your startups. It's something that the mainstream media now, echoing Joe Biden as his little band of stenographers, is calling the Putin price hike. And for doing the kind of reporting we do, no one debates us. They don't challenge us on the facts. What they do, and Aaron's going to address this, is they try to deplatform us, they try to censor us, and they claim that me and Putin made a deal to set up the Grayzone. They also say, you know, I mean, this is the mainstream press, the one that's freaking out about disinformation. You've had a lot of panels here on disinformation. They also said that Putin paid bounties to the Taliban to kill US troops. The New York Times reported that, as if the Taliban needed extra incentive to get rid of occupiers that had been there for 20 years. They said that Putin fabricated the existence of Hunter Biden's laptop, as if the Biden family couldn't be completely corrupt with business deals in China and Ukraine. Kamala Harris, the VP, said that Putin helped launch the anti-racism protests of Colin Kaepernick, while CNN reported that Putin is spreading racism in the United States. Putin is being blamed now by a member of parliament in the UK named Tobias Ellwood for the British rail strikes. So what's going on here? Why is Putin being blamed for everything? It's because the role of the mainstream press, which is spreading all these lies, which is the most prolific disseminator of disinformation on the planet, is seeking to distract us from what our predator class at home is actually doing to us, to divide us and destroy our economic livelihoods. And so we exist to do something else.
These are quite hard lines.
These are quite hard lines. Yes, I would agree. Those were quite hard lines. Now, when you were saying that stuff, there were people in the mainstream press sitting in the audience listening, correct?
Yeah, and I figure we'll probably show some of Aaron bringing up Assange in front of
yes, I have that. I have that in
corporate stenographers. But yeah, I mean, the front rows were filled with people from Reuters, CBS, ABC. We had come on right after a panel featuring just one person who was, I think, the executive producer at ABC. And all she was talking about, what the panel was about, was what ABC was doing to maximize the impact of the January 6th committee hearings and make sure that millions of Americans saw them. So Ann Curry was there also. She had a panel about truth in the age of disinformation. And the reactions in the green room afterwards it just felt tense. I mean, because you had the next wave of reporters going on stage and they were just glowering at us. But I actually saw some of them like really getting visibly upset in the front row.
Yes, what Max is saying there, like the clip you just played, that's Max's opening statement. Those are his opening words. So he's just coming out the gate, just viciously attacking the people who are right there. And you could tell they were not impressed. They were not happy with what he was saying. It was great. It was great to see.
I wish I was there. So here's you were asked about the future of journalism. Here's what you said.
You, Aaron, what is the future for fact-based reporting? Do you think we will have more political interference, less freedom of speech? What do you tell, especially the next generation of journalists, if there still are?
Well, on the future, I mean, I think so much rides on the case of Julian Assange. If the US succeeds in extraditing him and imprisoning him and killing him, as I think they want to do, then I think that's the end of fact-based journalism. Because look, the case they're bringing against him is based on the Espionage Act. They're essentially criminalizing him for publishing factual information. So if the case against Assange prevails, then journalism loses, I think, for good. And it's losing right now already, with as Max talked about, the absence of outcry from people in the media who should be leading the charge to save Julian Assange's life. And your second question is...
So, yeah, you don't hear mainstream news journalists talk about Julian Assange much. Were you the only one who brought it up?
Oh, absolutely. And what's crazy about that is, we don't even talk about Julian Assange enough because we're so busy covering all these other things, right? But if we don't even talk about it enough, imagine how bad it is for the corporate media, which never talks about Julian Assange except when they can't help but talk about it because some major thing happens. But otherwise, they're silent, or they're even supportive of what is being done to him because they view him with contempt. He represents everything that they don't, which is actually exposing crimes, not being a stenographer for power and being someone who whitewashes those crimes. So they have contempt for Julian. And, Betsy Reed of The Intercept was there, and I was thinking The Intercept is one of these outlets that is supposed to be this, leading adversarial outlet. Well, on Julian Assange, they've attacked him many times, and when he was going through one of his really important hearings, they just ignored the story completely, refused to cover it. So we don't cover it enough. We do what we can, but we should be talking about it every single day because it's just what he's done will decide the future of the media. It's just as simple as that.
And so, like, what I've experienced something like what you've experienced at that festival, tech conference, when I went to the Oslo Freedom Forum and there was a room full of journalists, and I was the only one challenging that pretend sham of a freedom forum. What it is what they do is they use the idea of they're going to help oppressed people in countries who are being oppressed by the government. What they're really doing is they're targeting countries that the United States and the West wants to overthrow so we can steal their natural resources, and they do it under the guise of bringing freedom and protecting people from government oppression. It's all fake because they don't have any problem with the United States and their imperialism, and anyway. So I've been there, and it was the weirdest feeling to have a room full of journalists going along with the liars and the murderers and turning on someone like me who was asking a question of the powerful. How did it feel to you to be doing pretty much the same thing?
Well, interestingly, Jimmy, I should mention that, and I'll hand off to Aaron real quickly, but I just think I should interject that Gary Kasparov, the executive director of the Oslo Freedom Forum, which is run by this guy Thor Halvorsen, this kind of neocon operative, but Kasparov is the face, the former chess master.
Right.
He's obsessively anti-Putin. He was actually there at this conference.
No.
And they were... Yeah, and they did a Q&A with him, like Q&A with the master, and then he did a whole section on Ukraine. So this was their expert voice on Ukraine. Gary Kasparov has called in the past for the United States to drop a nuclear weapon on Iraq. And he also, more recently, I think in 2015, was fined $500,000 by the International Chess Federation for attempting to bribe its jury to make him the president. So he is a corrupt psychopath who wanted to kill millions of Iraqis, and he is presented as a human rights hero and an expert on Ukraine at this conference.
Yeah,
Jimmy, weren't you kicked out of the Oslo Freedom Forum?
Yeah, so TYT had gone there before, and they reported on them glowingly. Look, what a great festival is! They're all about freedom because the Young Turks are bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex, and they wouldn't know a real story if it fucking bit them in their Democratic donor-filled ass. But I was there.
Jeffrey Katzenberg was at the conference, Jimmy, talking about funding disruptors. He did a panel from the main stage. Yes.
The Young Turks are not disruptors. They're ruptors, and we'll add the diss to that. But anyway, that's what a lot of these things turn out to be. They're just a big PR fronts for hegemony, imperialism, military-industrial complex, and for global neoliberalism, and that's what it feels like. So, what did it feel to you for me to walk around those people? I felt weird, like weird in the worst way possible. Like I'd never had that experience before, where journalists it made me feel sad for humanity. What did it make you feel?
Well, Jimmy, first of all, the fact that we were invited shows something. It shows that there are pockets for dissent, and at least pockets for being willing and interested in airing dissenting points of views that we represent. I mean, if you want the Grayzone to come to your conference, you know what we're going to say. So the fact that there's the interest in having us speak, as opposed to people who try very hard to pretend that we don't exist because they can't counter the facts that we're bringing out and the reporting that we do. So that was encouraging for me to at least be invited. But yeah, of course, when you're around these people who you have nothing but professional contempt for, it's awkward. And I saw some people who I very openly criticized, and it's a bit awkward to see them face to face, but whatever. It's just, we represent two different things, and they make their choices to go their way and we go ours. And we face the consequences of getting slandered and smeared, but we also get to, meet people everywhere. We go to your shows and we do our own events. Even at this conference, people coming up to us being very grateful for what we do. And there was a lot of that after our event. People came up to us and were very appreciative. So it's not all scumbags.
Yeah, I mean, it was an industry conference. And so you do have a lot of people who come from countries that have suffered under U.S. imperialism. And those tended to be the people who, like I said during our panel, unfortunately, we can't do a Q&A. It was only 20 minutes, but I'll stand in the hallway and engage everyone who wants to talk to me. And the people who wanted to talk to me were mostly immigrants from Muslim countries or Latin America who were in the tech industry, who supported what we were doing. No one else wanted to talk to us among the corporate media or the haters. And as Aaron's pointed out, there was an effort to prevent us from even being able to speak there once he announced our participation.
Who did you know who spearheaded that effort to stop you from speaking?
The usual Twitter trolls who no one really cares about, but who hate the fact that, starting with when Max started reporting on the white helmets and exposing the Syria dirty war, they've been on the campaign to cancel the Grayzone ever since. So these people who don't really have any influence, don't produce any work, but are very loud, tried to get us canceled, but they failed because that's what they do. They just fail.
But I just think if you look at this conference and the media track, you will get a good sense of where media is going if it is controlled entirely by tech-centric billionaires like Bill Gates and Pierre Omidyar, who are funding many of the outlets that were on stage there. Eric Schmidt as well, he funds media, and he even funds like ostensibly left-wing figures because he's obsessed with kind of like green energy and green solutions. And they had no interest in issues of war and peace. They had no interest in the controlled demolition of our economy by elites who actually benefited from it, because, hey, who are those elites? People like Bill Gates, whose fortune increased by 35% during the pandemic. All the feudal tech lords saw their fortunes increase massively during this pandemic because everyone is forced to stay at home and buy their products, and Bill Gates invested in the mRNA technology, et cetera. So the media is not going to bite the hand that feeds it, as I pointed out. What they wanted to talk about was what the little people are doing and the threat of the populace, the demos, and specifically the threat of those who are targeted by disinformation. And the way that the modern tech oligarch-backed correspondent sees themselves in this environment is as the savior of the cognition and minds of the public from what they consider to be disinformation, which is actually any information that they find inconvenient or which interferes with elite objectives. So, I mean, for me personally, I just wanted to interrupt that narrative and do a little bit of what people like Cy Hirsch, who's one of our guides and mentors, did throughout his career, which is punching up. All these people do is punch down.
Yes, I hear you. Yeah, you mean punch down at places like you, people with
places like us are at parts of the population that they fear, who have no resources to actually punch back.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was exhilarating. You had about a 18-minute talk on stage with that host, and I watched the whole thing. It's really fun to watch. If you like this show, you'll like that video. So everybody should go watch that. It was fun to hear them say that stuff, knowing that there were corporate-funded douchebags sitting all over the place having to hear that. And I was surprised. Who was that host?
Well, the first host refused to. Martina Fuchs, and she is at Xinhua, which is a Chinese-backed wire service that is was considered very mainstream until all the
Oh, okay.
Cold War stuff started happening. But she, I think, lives in Switzerland or is Swiss.
Okay.
And she agreed to do the panel with us because the other person who was asked to be our interlocutor refused out of disrespect for us.
Who is that person?
Well, the claim was there was a scheduling conflict, and I personally would not be surprised if he just bowed out because some Twitter trolls pressured him or something, or he looked us up and saw who we are. But yeah, so Martina came in and look, people were critical of her for asking us critical questions, but I think that's fine. We can handle critical questions. We can handle it. We can speak for ourselves and we can hold our own. So she was just doing her job. And look,
who was it?
Say it again.
Who was it?
The original guy. I forgot.
You don't have to say. I guess you don't.
I forgot his name.
Honestly, Jimmy, aside from a few prominent people, I hadn't heard of many of the people that were there, but they were running major media organizations.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, these are outlets, you know, like ProPublica or The Intercept, or nobody reads them. Like they get pretty low hit counts considering how big their staff is and how much money they get.
It is amazing how few people read The Intercept. That is certainly more people watch this show than read that thing.
One of the few panels I got to go to, the media panels, because we were there for a short time, featured ProPublica and the head of Yahoo News. And the head of ProPublica, this is sort of like an investigative news site.
Yeah.
It gets a ton of money from Bill Gates, maybe all the usual suspects. And he actually said, we got it wrong on Russia.
No.
All this hysteria about Russian interference, I think we totally got it wrong. And it was really unfortunate that we buried Hunter Biden's laptop during the election. But when has ProPublica come in and used its credibility to actually push back or say that we got it wrong? Nowhere. It happens in these little industry events that are kind of like invite only, or you have to pay $250. That to me is a form of corruption.
Well, yeah, obviously, yes. But it's fun. I didn't know ProPublica was funded by Bill Gates. It seems like everybody's funded by Bill Gates, who they try to downplay that he's the #1 private owner of farmland in America, like it's not a big deal. Like that's normal. And then we see what's happening to the Dutch farmers. They're literally trying to bankrupt them so they can steal their. We're getting off track. But anyway, well, great job. Do you want to stick around and talk about that Guardian story, or do you have to go?
I got it.
It's okay if you have to go.
I might have to leave Aaron here.
Okay. All right. Well, all right.
I want to.
Max,
but,
it was great. Thanks.
Draft Simon Tisdale.
Ha
Draft the whole Guardian.
All right. So thanks for spending some time with us. Everybody check out Max Blumenthal, that Grayzone, and everybody go watch that video. It was very entertaining. Sacramento, back here in Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.